And welcome back to Music Free Static. I hope you're having a fabulous day, and I want to talk today about something I don't talk about very often, and that is the Minecraft updates. So there's been a lot of updates coming out from Minecraft 1.21, and this last week, they added a new weapon to the game. They added the Mace. Now, we're not talking about spray mace, we're talking about a heavy thing on a stick that you thwack people with, okay? These are a very common weapon in the Middle Ages, right? Medieval periods, all that stuff, because it turns out a big heavy thing on a stick does a really good job of getting through armor, where a sword, not so much. So, here's the deal. This is being added as part of the new trial chambers, and it's crafted from a new item called the breeze rod. And this is, or wind rod, whatever it is. It's the thing that gets dropped from a breeze when you kill it. And this is sort of analogous to a blaze rod for blazes. Now, in the previous updates, the breeze would drop wind charges. The wind charges are now crafted from the wind rod, but what drops is the rod. Okay, cool. And then you take that rod, which by itself is just a cool blue stick, and when you unlock one of the trial chamber loot chest things, right? You take your key, drop it in the vault, and it spits out a bunch of stuff. One of the things it can drop is this heavy core, which is about the size of a player head, but you can't angle it, which I think is a weird oversight. But anyway, so it's this heavy core. And the core, combined with this wind rod, becomes a mace. Now this is an interesting weapon in a lot of ways. By itself, just thwacking people with it, it has the same damage and attack speed as a diamond sword. Okay, so it's a fairly reasonable weapon. And that's just unenchanted diamond sword, okay? We all know you decide to put sweeping edge and sharpness 5 on a diamond sword, things get different. But that's that's kind of where things are by default. However, the mace has an interesting characteristic in that if you are falling, you get increased damage. And that damage goes up depending on how high you're falling from. Okay? So if you just jump off a block or two, you get some extra height, you come down and thwack, and it adds more to your damage. And there's a formula somewhere. I don't remember actually seeing if they had actually published the exact formula, though Ray's had worked out some of that. I think Ray may have gone into the code. I don't know. In any case, I'll link his video because he did some interesting things with this, which I'll talk about in a minute. But the idea is that, but behind the mace is that, this is I am going to bring death from above, and I am going to smite thee with the power of 1,000 anvils, right? Which is, a fun change in weaponry rather than just stand there and whoosh, whoosh, whoosh with your sword or with your axe or whatever. But, and this is where the Racework stuff comes in, the damage just keeps going up. There's no cap to it. So, given the appropriate setup and being really good, you can do some cool things with it. Because this is the other aspect of the mace, is that if you hit a mob when you're falling with a mace, it negates all fall damage, right? So it doesn't matter how high you fall from, 100 blocks, 1,000 blocks, doesn't matter. If you fall and hit a mob at the bottom of your fall, you don't take fall damage. And whatever you just smashed with your hammer, it becomes dust, okay? And I'm going to end up referring to this thing as a hammer a lot because the model they use, it's a 2D model, and it looks like a hammer. It looks like a freaking maul, or in more modern cultural words, I suppose, it looks like Mjolnir from the Marvel movies. It's a big flippin' hammer. So if I, the all of the puns about it being hammer time and all that stuff, they're going to be coming a lot over the next several months. The hammer time, and as I titled the episode, it's all about that mace. So that's going to be a thing too. And that's because, I said, right now there's no damage cap. So Ray demonstrated, and I know other people in the Minecraft feedback Discord were talking about being able to one-shot mobs that you should not be able to one-shot. At least that's the theory. So Ray demonstrated one-shotting the dragon, for example. Right? You take your elytra, you fly up. I can't remember how far up he ended up going, about 100 blocks. You come down and hit the dragon in the head, which is important because hitting the head does more damage. Hit the dragon in the head, and she just explodes. I mean, it really is that crazy. He also showed one-shotting the warden. Ravagers are easy. Same thing, just can one-shot them for about 12 blocks up. There are some people in the Discord who talk about combining wind charges, because if you throw a wind charge at your feet, it jumps you up in the air, right? So they were talking about, you can use the wind charge to jump up not that far, and you're one-shotting people in Prot 4 netherite armor. Okay? It's a little crazy, right? Now, there's a caveat. Now, when Ray did his dragon attack, he did it with an elytra, and elytra fall damage isn't quite the same as just fall damage. So if you're just falling and smashing into the ground, the mace will save you if you hit something, okay? But if you're flying with an elytra and you dive towards the ground, that is elytra kinetic energy, not fall damage. Okay, so the mace is not going to save you from that. Whether it should or not is an interesting question, but you may, racist, you probably want a totem here. So, because you're just going to dive bomb into the ground. The dragon will be dead, but you'll be splattered all over the countryside unless you have a totem of undying. So, this is, in its current iteration, okay, I'm going to say it's overpowered. Any weapon that can one-shot the dragon out of the box, right, is a problem, I think, right? It's one thing, DocAm 77, during the season 9 of Hermitcraft, was showing off a weird glitch where if you shoot an arrow at an Enderman, of course, the Enderman will try to jump out of the way, but if it can't, it does weird things to the arrow. And he was getting this arrow up to like ridiculous speeds and was able to target a specific location. Because that's the thing, it was lots of very finicky, but also very specific places where you can use this. And was one-shotting wardens. It was able to one-shot a person wearing Prot 4 netherite gear and not just kill them, but break all of their armor. Okay. That's a very, very specific thing. Okay. You had to be standing right here. The machine had to be warmed up for like an hour to get the arrow up to speed. It was intense. The mace, on the other hand, doesn't require any of that, right? It just requires that you descend like a flaming bolt from the sky, right? And it's a little insane. So, I'm kind of curious what they're going to do with this. This episode, obviously, it publishes on Wednesday, or for the public, which is usually the day the next snapshot comes out. It wouldn't surprise me if Mojang drops another snapshot that has a nerf, right? That sort of either caps the damage that it does, or maybe not. Maybe this is desired behavior. Maybe they want this thing to be insane, but we'll kind of see. And that's depending on what they do with it, may just determine whether or not the mace ends up on that list of novelty weapons like the trident and the crossbow. Now, the crossbow is a weapon that bothers me a little bit in Minecraft. I love the crossbow. Honestly, if I could, I would use the crossbow all the time. The problem is, it makes 0 sense to carry a crossbow. With a bow, you can power that sucker up. So you're basically one-shotting most of your regular mobs. Okay, you put power 5 on it. You give it the flame enchantment. You can put punch 2 or punch 3 on it, right? So if you want knockback on the thing, right? And basically, you are an unstoppable killing machine. Anything you hit with an arrow dies. Okay, at least with the regular size mobs. You get into the bigger mobs like wardens and those types of things that have a few more hit points. Okay, maybe that's not so much, but everything just dies under your assault. Okay, lovely. A crossbow can't do that. Now, despite historically crossbows being every bit as deadly as a longbow, or actually any warbow, even a short bow, you've got a 120 pound warbow. Those things are insane, right? That'll do all sorts of bad things to your chainmail and stuff. But a crossbow did just as much damage and was easier to use. Slower loading, but easier to use. Now, in Minecraft, you can deal with that slower loading in some ways by getting the quick charge enchantment, right? The fully quick charge that thing, which is great. It fires. It's pretty comparable to a bow, and you can leave it cocked, right? So if you just have it in your hotbar and something surprises you, you could quickly jump to that slot, fire your crossbow, and basically you can get a shot off faster than you could by pulling the bow in Minecraft. All right. The problem is the enchantments, right? There's no infinity enchantment for a crossbow. Okay, now there are debates whether or not infinity or mending is better on a bow. I'm not going to get into the pros and cons. Everybody has their tastes, though I know infinity tends to be preferred. For me, it's situational. If I'm killing the dragon, or if I'm end raiding, I like an infinity bow, because I'm going to be shooting a lot of stuff. One, my aim sucks to begin with. So it's just nice not to have to worry about arrows when you're fighting the dragon. And then end raiding, it's just nice to have the inventory slot free. Yeah, and that's basically it. But you can't put infinity on a crossbow. You can't put the power enchantment on a crossbow, which means it can't hit with the same oomph that a regular bow does. And the enchantments it does have are really awkward to use, right? Multi-shot is great if you're up close and personal. If you want to use a shotgun, I guess the crossbow isn't too bad. You just have to be right up next to the thing. Yeah, maybe because it spreads, you shoot 3 arrows instead of 1, but it fires in a spread. You have to be really dealing with a mob of mobs, right? Or be really good at knowing where those other two shots are going. Or you could use the piercing enchantment, which sends the bolt through a mob's shield, right? Or through a whole line of mobs, right? The arrow hits the first mob and stops. The piercing enchantment, it goes through every mob until the arrow stops. Okay, great. That's lovely. And then you can recover the arrow, right? Which I suppose could make it sort of a mending-ish, or a mending-ish and infinity-ish enchantment. But you have to actually be able to get the arrows, which doesn't help if your shots are going off into the void, or you're shooting down. I don't know, something, right? But even if you don't worry about infinity, the fact that doesn't matter what I put on that crossbow, I can never fire arrows as powerfully from it as I can from a regular bow. The only thing I can really do with a crossbow is load it up with fireworks and try to make things explode. But that gets really awkward because, with arrows, if I fill my inventory with arrows, right, I can shoot all day. But I can't do that with fireworks because I have to manually put the fireworks in my offhand in order to add them to the crossbow. It'll automatically pull arrows. It won't automatically pull fireworks rockets, which is understandable. That's fine. But it's makes it a little bit tougher to use. Okay. Now, whether that's a big deal or not, I suppose is debatable, but the reality is with arrows, the crossbow is just hardly worth it. Okay, so, and then you've got the other novelty weapon, which is the trident. Now, I tried for a while on One World to use the trident as my exclusive weapon. Because you can, with the loyalty enchantment, you can throw the trident and it will come back to you. Okay, awesome, right? It's like the boomerang fish. You throw the trident away and it comes right back, right? It's great. Except it's a little slow to come back, which may or may not be an issue. It doesn't hit any harder than really a regular arrow, which means you have to hit a regular mob, right? If I was throwing this at a skeleton, you have to hit it like 3 times, maybe something like that. And if it's an armor, you're going to just be planking at this thing forever. And yes, it also has melee capabilities. But compared to a sharpness 5 axe or sword, yeah, not fabulous. And the one superpower it has of being able to channel lightning only works when there's lightning, right? You have to be in the rain. There has to be a storm, thunderstorm, actually, I think even. Now you can put Riptide on it and go quickly through the water. Okay, that's great. And you can fly in the rain. Okay, that's fine. But as a weapon, it's basically useless. So, yeah, I'm not. Right? So again, novelty weapons. Is it a weapon? Yes. Do people in Minecraft use it as such? Not really. Because once your players get armor, or heck, the mobs are strong enough that you can't one-shot it like you can with a bow. So, the reason I was looking at using it is it's a singular inventory slot, right? The bow and arrows, it's 2. Same with a crossbow and arrows. It's 2 inventory slots where a trident is 1. And because it can melee, you could potentially use it instead of a sword. Now, what I tend to do is use an axe. I'll put sharpness 5 on my axe, and for just, hey, something jumps out at me as a self-defense weapon, axes are pretty nice. And you can axe crit just about any of the regular mobs in the game and one-shot them, and it's fine. Okay. And then if I want to do anything more exciting, okay, I'll get my sword with my looting enchantment and we'll go do the thing. Okay. If I'm intending to be offensive, I'll bring my sword. And or certain comedians, one of the two. Or, politicians, which are also good at looting. Something like that, right? Does your politician have the looting enchantment? Okay. Anyway, on that side note, let's get back to the mace. Is the mace going to fall into the same category as the crossbow and trident, right? Is it going to be a weapon that exists, but will not be used in regular gameplay? All right. Now, I could totally see wind charge and mace as being a fun arena thing for a PvP server. Okay. Because you can do cool things with the wind charge. You can scale up vertical surfaces as basically wall jumping your way up, which is really cool. Death from above is awesome. Okay. Especially with how powerful it is on the drop. But for your regular, I want to carry this around with me and thwack mobs with it. Is anybody going to care? The reality is I don't know, because it hasn't, it's been out for like 4 days as I'm recording this, right? And there's definitely going to be a lot of balancing and work with it as it gets run through its paces through the PvP and PvE community. I said Razeworks video, which I'm going to link in the description, really shows how insane this thing is. Now, he goes through some pretty elaborate setups to be able to one-shot the Warden. Now, in part because the Warden has like 500 hit points. It's a beast. So you have to have a lot of space to be able to drop and hit the Warden. Okay. But the dragon, there's lots of empty space over it. So if you have an Elytra and a Totem of Undying, you kind of know where the dragon's going to be. It will hold still for you regularly, right? As it comes in and perches over its nest, the end portal. Ravagers, you don't have to go up that high to one-shot a Ravager. So that it'll be interesting. Where the mace is going to have more fun, I suppose, more creative gameplay with it will be the PvP scene, right? Again, I can see an arena with pillars placed randomly through it, and then, oh yeah, you can even see it dispensing wind charges as you're running around the map. You can pick up the wind charges and watching for attacks from above, as right? I could see that. That could be a fun game mode, right? But for regular vanilla Minecraft gameplay, right? I am a player trying to make his way in the world. Will I choose a mace as opposed to a sword? Is the mace a reasonable alternative to a sword or an axe? And again, I'm talking about fully enchanted, right? Day one? Oh yeah, sure. Why not? You're not enchanting anything yet. If you want to run a trial chamber and pick it up rather than mining for diamonds, okay, sure. That can be a thing. But again, is it a reasonable weapon to carry with you on your survival adventures? At this point, I'd say no. Now, there was a lot of talk in the Minecraft feedback Discord about what enchantments could you put on it, right? You could put knockback on it, because one feature it does have that I didn't mention before is if you're dropping from a height and you hit a mob, it actually applies the knockback effect to any any mobs that are around it. So basically you smash the guy in the center and everybody else gets knocked back a little bit. So I could see the knockback enchantment. Say you put knockback 3 on this thing, and it could really scatter those mobs to the 4 winds. And I can see a lot of cases where that might be helpful, right? You're being surrounded by zombie piglins because you accidentally ticked one off. Pillager outposts or pillager raids could be interesting, right? So, again, for very specific cases, even unchanged, I could see the mace being useful. But not for, I said, your basic, I want to carry this weapon around with me to smack people around as I'm wandering the world. I don't see it. Okay? I just don't. And as I said, I'll take an axe. I said right now, doesn't take much. I can jump crit with an axe and take care of most mobs that I'm facing. Okay? It's an excellent sidearm. And it's useful, and I don't have to eat up an inventory slot for a sword. I don't know that I would justify using a mace, for my gameplay anyway. Because one, okay, I'm eating the inventory slot, and sure, it can hit things. I don't have looting on it, which is one of the main reasons I use a sword, is the looting enchantment. So, now yes, if you get the drop on things, if you want to add another inventory slot for a wind charge so you can jump up and thwack, oh yeah, it'll beat the snot out of many, many things. But I don't know. As it sits now, and maybe it will change, but as it sits now, for me, the mace is going to be, again, one of those lovely novelty weapons. You know, okay, I've got it. Awesome. I will put it in a chest and never use it again. Right? Same with the trident, maybe. The same with a crossbow. And I want to use the crossbow. I really do. But the same with those weapons. They will go in a chest and we'll never see them again. So we'll see. We'll see if there's something that Mojang will do to the mace to change how it works. A couple things I can see is, one, put a damage cap on it. I mean, it's great that it does more damage when you're falling, though one could argue, and I think Shadiversity did a video that showed jump attacks in reality don't really do any more damage than standing attack. In fact, they do less, because now all you've got is your momentum, right? If you jump with a weapon, the only thing you've got attacking is the momentum, the weight of your body, and the strength of your arm. Potentially, as you jump and, you know, thwack into whatever it is you're attacking. But when you're on the ground, you've got all of the strength of your whole body, your core, your legs, everything goes into an attack. And you can really smash into things when you can use your whole body. That's why you see baseball players, when they swing, they don't just use their arms. They use their legs, their hips, their core, their whole body goes into a swing. Because it gives you more power. And said you can demonstrate this. Once you get in the air, all of your strength goes away. All you have left is a fairly consistent momentum as you fall and hit. It's just not that powerful. But again, I could see them saying, all right, we're going to cap the damage at some value. Yes, you could drop from 12. Yeah, we'll call it, just say pick 12 blocks as a random number, okay? And that, whatever that is, that will max your damage. So you can one-shot a Ravager. You can't one-shot Wardens. You can't one-shot the Dragon, okay? But you can do great. Historically, the strength of the Mace was that it does all sorts of bad things to armor. right? Because swords do not cut through armor, right? In very specific, very lucky circumstances, you might be able to thrust through plate armor, which basically most Minecraft armor is the equivalent of plate. Yes, there is chainmail armor, and except for B00, nobody wears chainmail armor. Okay, and the reality is you can't cut through chainmail either. It's flexible. You can get blunt force trauma through the chainmail, and some very specific swords were designed to pop the links on chainmail. But even then, swords are not going through chainmail. But a mace, I'm just not cutting through the mail, but it is putting one heck of a dent in it. And you know what's right on the other side of that armor? You! Hey, guess what? Now, again, in historical terms, you'd have a gambeson underneath it, which would absorb a lot of the blunt force. Right, and there's some other things. But a mace or a warhammer or something really devastating like a Beck to Corbin is going to mess you up. So I could see, in Minecraft terms, you could say that the mace negates a certain amount of the protection level of armor. Now, I'm not suggesting that maybe you ignore the protection of armor, right? All of the armor damage reduction that armor gives you. But what you might say is it ignores the Prot 4 enchantment, right? That could be an interesting option for it. Or it ignores it or it decreases it. So if somebody has Prot 4 armor and you hit them with a mace, it applies maybe only at Prot 2 or Prot 1. Okay, it'll cut down 3 levels. So the Prot 4 still gives you extra, but you have to have Prot 4. If you have Prot 3 or lower, it's not going to help you. You just have the damage reduction of the armor. Okay, that would be a cool option, perhaps, right? Or, you can do a number of things along those lines that allow it to be more useful in a PvP type environment or PvE against mobs in armor, because zombies and skeletons can spawn in armor. Right, so you could totally see that, or you could see it the amount of protection armor gives you with a mace is cut by a certain percentage. Okay, and maybe with a new enchantment of sorts, I don't know what, but we'll call it the smashing enchantment. I don't know, pick something. Without it, you get armor protection is cut by 10%, but at say smashing 5, maybe it's up to, I don't know, 30%, right? What if you add 5% for every level up that the enchantment goes, right? So, that could be interesting, right? So there are options and there are things that could make the mace interesting. The catch is, for it to be a viable weapon in Minecraft, you have to wonder, what would you choose to not carry so that you could carry the mace? And that would be the sword. Axes are used for cutting down trees. You're going to carry an axe. But the question is, would you carry this instead of a sword? And there has to be a good trade-off, just like the crossbow. I could fully enchant it. I could fire fairly quickly with a crossbow with the quick draw enchantment, but I'll never be able to one-shot that skeleton that's 20 blocks away or that creeper that's coming up. So I doesn't make sense to use the crossbow. So these are things I'm curious to see how it goes. I mean, obviously Mojang is still doing development. This is the first release of it, so it's got some time. But I'm curious. I would actually like to see it be a good alternative. But of course, if it's going to be an alternative to the sword, you kind of need a looting enchantment with it too. So, I don't know. We'll see. I'm excited. Let me know what you think. I'm curious. drop it in the comments here on YouTube or join the Discord. I'm more than happy to talk about things there. And until next time, be excellent to each other. And this is Music Free Static signing off.